So returning to sport is one of the toughest things an athlete can do. One of the toughest things that any athlete will face is returning to sport and being themselves and feeling like themselves and feeling comfortable of where they are and who they are after an injury. It's very tough road. You know, you face so many things from depression to isolation to questions and wondering about the uncertainty. Will I ever get back to being who I was? Is it possible? What are my limitations? A multitude of things go through an athlete's head whenever they're injured from their sport. Video, make sure that you like and subscribe, share it with somebody. And if you have liked and subscribed and you're a member of the channel, make sure you share it with someone to help us move up in the rankings and also to help us hit our goal. We want to get to 300 subscribers by the end of September, and so that's just our goal right now. We're not far away, so I think it's very doable. But getting back to the task at hand, you know, whenever an athlete is returning to sport, there's so many things that you have to deal with. The mental side is one, but then like whenever you get closer to coming back, there's so many questions that flood the athlete's mind of, you know, am I ready? How do I move? How do I get comfortable? How do I get acclimated? You know, whenever I get back to the field, court, or whatever surface it is that the athlete plays on. And that's where the role of a sports performance coach comes in. If you're unfamiliar with one or you don't have one, you know, we are the people who help athletes with, you know, mental training, speed and agility training, strength training, things of that nature. And so everything that helps an athlete be a better performer at their sport and improve their skill is what a sports performance coach does. And, you know, if you're looking for one, my name is Justin Miller, owner of Legends of Athletics. Been in the sports performance industry over the last 10 years, worked with countless athletes across multiple sports. And so if I can help you, I don't mind doing that at all. But in the world of sports, speed is the ultimate weapon. Can you harness it? Athletes in need of speed and agility training, Legends of Athletics has the perfect program for you. If you struggle accelerating, are unsure how to train for results in and out of season, cannot change directions or jump, hit the message button and set up a call and assessment today. With our system, we offer weekly check-ins, scheduled face-to-face calls, mental training, speed-based programming, year-round, in and out of season. I'm Justin Miller, owner of Legends of Athletics. Over the last 10 years in the sports performance industry, I have trained over 250 athletes. 30% of the Legends of Athletics athletes have obtained scholarships at the collegiate level for sport. In the world of sports, speed is the ultimate weapon. Harness your speed with Legends of Athletics through online training, custom online training, or face-to-face training. Be legendary. But the first thing we want to do in a return to sport protocol is we want to work with a physical, an athlete will more times than not be working with a physical therapist or an occupational therapist or both. They will also be under the guidance of the surgeon who performed their surgery. If the athlete had to have surgery before the injury, before therapy took place. And so the doctor or surgeon will be the one that gives them the clearance whenever the PT or the OT, physical therapist or occupational therapist, which is mainly PT and OT, when one of them gives the, as they give the notes to the doctor, and they have to reach certain thresholds in order to get passed off or pass certain tests in order to get passed off and get the clearance to come back for sports. And so when they're working with the PT and OT, what I like to do from a sports performance side, let's say that this athlete, let's say they've been out of sport for, we'll keep it real simple and say 6 months. Usually they wouldn't see me as a performance coach for the area that I'm in. They wouldn't see me until they're about 1 month to 2 months away from returning to the team atmosphere. So they're almost ready to be cleared to play games and participate in practice. And so at that point, I would ask the PT, from my perspective, I like to play with concepts. And so I asked the physical therapist or the occupational therapist, you know, what are you doing in therapy? If I have that clearance, if not, that's violating HIPAA. If you don't have that or have any form of paperwork signed like that, you can ask your athlete at that point, say, hey, what are y'all doing in therapy? What are your limitations in therapy? Things of that nature. And if you are working with an athlete that's like in high school, then you can ask the parent, you know, what are y'all doing in therapy? What did they say the limitations are? and are not, and you work around those barriers and those boundaries to produce a program that is going to suit and fit the athlete perfectly. So in this video, I'm talking a lot about in general. So nothing out that, I mean, every injury is unique, and so every protocol is going to be specific to that athlete, and it's going to be custom to the athlete. The next thing I do is assess the athlete myself, and so I like to put the athlete through sports based tests. So with PT and OT, depending on who you're working with, if they work with athletes before, then they will do more athletic things. In most cases, most PTs and OTs um, work with a predominantly geriatric population, meaning older adults who are not returning to sports. So the PT is not as aggressive. The OT is not as aggressive as they would be for an athlete that's looking to return to sport and play. So you just have to be mindful of what they do. And so I like to do my own assessment personally, meaning I like to check range of motion myself. I like to check, to see how angry that site is. So how much swelling are we getting? What activities are we doing that produce swelling? How comfortable is that athlete mentally with doing simple tasks such as walking or ambulating, depending on, well, we're going to keep it simple for everybody to understand. Walking, performing certain drills like low impact drills, so nothing high impact. I'm talking about like our basic high knee or knee hug or hip ankle cradles and things like that. Those are the things that I kind of do as far as like a rough assessment. I have more than that, but a rough assessment, how comfortable is this athlete with skipping? How comfortable is, depending on the injury, how comfortable is the athlete with jumping? How comfortable is the athlete with stepping over objects? How comfortable is the athlete with pulling objects? How comfortable is the athlete with taking on impact? This can go from low impact to high impact. So those are a few things, again, that I just like to go over in an assessment and ask myself, and write down and take notes of where we are and where we're starting. And then that way, if you have a starting point, you can see if you're progressing or regressing through a program and then adjust accordingly. The next thing that I like to do is like time allotted to a ramp up. So really, return to sport is what we would call, at one of my old jobs, I took this term as like a ramp up process. And so you're taking an athlete from being injured, which the whole rehab process is ramping up. So you're taking this athlete from the time of injury to the time of surgery, to the time of therapy, and then on up to return to sport, and then in the sport. That whole process is a ramp up. So we're going from being sedentary, mildly active, moderately active, intensively active, and then we're back to where we are, or our baseline for activity daily. For most athletes, they're going to be intensively active because they have practice every day, and then they're going to have to just take on a multitude of things. It's just depends on the sport, again, because you have everything from, we talk about impacts. Kicking a soccer ball is impact, running is an impact, jumping is an impact, skipping is an impact, hitting another human being, of course, is an impact. But those are things that we have to keep in mind, which that goes to like demand of the sport. So when we're ramping up, we have to ramp up and then keep at front of mind what are the demands of the sport, and what does this athlete have to do in order to return and be at baseline or be better than baseline whenever they're coming back to sport. In this process, it's very easy sometimes to get so cautious that you're not making progress, and there's also times where you can get overzealous and kill some of the progress that you've made. So you have to be very careful how you're handling the situation, and very cognizant and aware of what you're doing in each step. It's going to be one of those things too. The first time you do it, if this is your first time ramping up an athlete, you're probably going to lean more to the overly cautious side versus the overzealous side. Now, some of you may be just uber aggressive, but more times than not, what I've seen over the years is we're just overly cautious to a point where you're getting behind schedule rather than ahead or on schedule. So you want to work in conjunction, going back to the first thing I said, with the PT and OT and what they're doing, and add and be a supplement to what they're doing. And you don't want to be the person who's regressing what they're doing because you are overly or too aggressive. So keep that in mind. You're the third on the totem pole when it comes to the athlete. So you got the surgeon or doctors ordering care what they're doing, and then you have the PTOT, and then you have yourself that's third. So you want to supplement the top two there. Now, the next thing, like I said, we want to know the time allotted. So do we have 4 weeks to work with this athlete? Do we have 6 weeks to work with this athlete? Do we have a week to work with this athlete? What do we have? And so when you have that, now you can mark up and make a timeline. Now you can make a schedule of and make your own checkpoints and goals of what you want to hit when you want to hit those things over time. That way that you can make sure that you're helping this athlete, and that you have that own set of goals in your head, so that you're just not working with no goals, and the only goals that you're taking is what the PT and OT are saying, but you don't have any of your own. And so, you have to take that into consideration. Also, I want to give you this as a bonus. Let's say you have a football athlete, you have to take into consideration. I talked about demands of the sport, so you got to take into consideration what sport they play, what their position is, and what they're asked to do repetitively versus what they're asked to do occasionally. So let's say that we have a quarterback, right? So a quarterback is going to be asked to do a multitude of things, and let's say it's a lower body injury. Let's say it's something with the knee. So a quarterback is going to be asked to do a crossover step. They're also going to be asked to shuffle. They're going to be asked to push laterally off of one leg. They're going to be asked to sprint. They're going to be asked to twist, and they're going to be asked to have great range of motion and mobility, because they're going to take some awkward hits, meaning they're going to take hits where they may get hit in the knees while also getting hit in the upper body. They may get hit at the ankle and twisted. They may get pushed back. Their lineman may get pushed back on top of them, and a blunt blow to the chest, where they have to take that stumble step backwards, and so they may have to catch themselves going backwards versus just falling straight back on their head and just falling falling and being unfamiliar with the fall or unfamiliar with the blow. So those are things I just think of, like I said, off the top of my head, that the sport is asking and demanding that we have to take into consideration and ask ourselves, how am I going to prepare this athlete to do all those things in the time allotted, which is why that's very important. And you have to be upfront with parents and coaches on what you're able to do, how long it's going to take you to do it, and then even don't be afraid to talk to the PT and OT again, going back to them, because they're going to be with that athlete more than a doctor will or surgeon will. If you have that access, talking to them and just seeing how you can work with them and in the time frame that you have to be a supplement.